So it seems to me there are a number of reasons why She-Hulk is probably not going to ever return to Disney Plus, or maybe not at all. I can't imagine the cameo that they would have her appear in for a film that they have in the works with everything that they're doing to try to remake the Marvel brand. Maybe She-Hulk just doesn't fit. But there's another reason that's being passed around Hollywood or suggested that may be the reason why we won't be seeing She-Hulk ever again. Specifically not in her own show. And for today's video, I'm bringing in a special guest, somebody who understands what's going on behind the scenes and likes to, well, tell the truth about entertainment on his channel and, well, network of channels. And today, joining us is WDW Pro. Hey, Pro, how are you today, sir?
Oh, I'm having a better time than anybody who is hoping for She-Hulk seasons 2, 3, and 4. Not going to happen.
That's very, very true. And we have some data to back that up, which we'll get to in just a moment. But, Pro, I'm going to ask for your initial reaction before we look over this article. Do you think that She-Hulk, based on its performance, which, again, we'll look at those numbers in a moment, do you think that it deserved a second season, regardless of what Tatiana may have said or not said?
I'm a person who looks pragmatically at results. And so rather than basing my decisions on emotions, I try to see, how did the market react? Was this a success for subscriber growth? And on every metric that I can possibly find, She-Hulk was devastating for Disney. The only way that She-Hulk performed well was in what you would call brand activation. And the only reason that it was brand activating is because it was such a source of mockery online that it trended for all the wrong reasons. So even there, not good at all. And then you add all of that to the fact that She-Hulk was extraordinarily expensive due to the CGI required in almost every shot, and you wind up with a show that has no shot of returning.
Wow, that's amazing analysis. And I agree with you almost entirely. In fact, I'm trying to figure out if I have anywhere I can disagree with you. But let's get into this article very quickly. It seems that She-Hulk star Tatiana Maslany was so heated up, according to the headline, when she called Disney CEO Bob Iger out of touch during the strike. It's hard to articulate yourself on the picket line. Well, certainly. And Zach Sharf does a good job of covering the...
That's a great way to smooth it over.
It does, yeah. Yeah,
it's like screaming at the dinner table that you hate someone at the last family gathering, and the response is in a text message, "It's hard to articulate yourself over dinner."
Well, I think she would have punctuated that dinner with throwing a handful of mashed potatoes at him, but I could be wrong. But anyway.
She's only allowed to have sporks from now on. Only sporks.
There you go. But I know that Zach Sharf does a good job covering the inside and the outside of a lot of the things that happen in a lot of these shows. But She-Hulk star Tatiana Maslany went viral during the SAG-AFTRA strike last year. No kidding. And we just talked about the behavior that. Well, we're likening it to a very poor dinner with family. But,
Thanksgiving of terror, folks, with Tatiana Maslany.
But that She-Hulk was a Disney-backed Marvel series streaming on Disney Plus, only drew more heightened attention to her call out of Iger. Now, mind you, I think that the She-Hulk show premiered in July of 2022. Is that correct?
Sometime around there, yeah.
Yeah. July or August, somewhere in there. And but the strike was last year, July. Am I right?
Yes, July until what? End of November, early December,
something like that. Yeah. So she says in those moments, you're so heated up. This is according to The Independent. Months later, when asked about her decision to publicly criticize Iger, it's hard to articulate yourself in a way that you want when you're on the picket line with everybody.
It's so hard because it's 70 degrees and you're in the shade underneath a tree because you're the famous celebrity that they need to take photos of. It's just really, really hard, Culture. It's really hard to say things that aren't mean and abrasive towards your future boss.
There you go. And again, she was, at the time, I think it looks like she was in New York City. A Hollywood reporter asked her about Iger's comments, and she responded, "I think he's completely out of touch. He's completely out of touch with workers who make his shows happen, who make people watch these shows, and who bring viewers to him and him money." Okay, first of all, do they actually employ SAG-AFTRA people to go into people's houses and force them to watch the shows?
Well, I was going to say, Culture. I mean, she would know about being out of touch. She just was out of touch with her recent show, so she's an expert in this area. And I feel bad for her. I feel bad because this is what happens. Think about James Mangold, right? Director
Mhm.
of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
Up until he intersected with Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy, he was a shining star. He could do no wrong. He gets over there and he's handed this pile of crap and told to make a statue out of it, and he loses his mind at fans. What's going on with Tatiana? She's a great actress. She's had an illustrious career. She
Yeah.
was on the upswing. She becomes She-Hulk. And guess what? Now she's making major faux pas with the public and with the press and with her CEO. And it's all because when you put people in these kinds of positions where they're not having fun anymore and things aren't going right, and it's all because of your woke, propagandistic kinds of things you're putting in your shows, suddenly nobody's having a good time and everybody's making mistakes.
Yeah, and there's plenty of mistakes being made, not just by her, but pretty much everybody that was involved in this, because in the show, they literally attacked half their fan base and made fun of them. So, again, I think part of the writing staff and maybe the actors themselves, people on the crew, anybody involved in producing that, were out of touch as well. So, there's a lot of out of touch things, but let's look at what Iger said to initiate or ignite, as the article says, the backlash. So, during a July 13th interview with CNBC's David Faber, from the Sun Valley Conference, where he went on record saying WGA and SAG after strikes were not being realistic about their demands or with their demands. I would agree, but this was, I would say, out of character for Iger to say anything during this particular conference. In fact, you don't usually get a lot of headlines out of here, so there must have been something that ticked him to say something at this news conference, because Sun Valley is where all the muckety mucks meet up from tech and media
Well,
and a few
Iger's
other
not smooth
industries.
anymore. You
Mm,
can't expect Iger to act the way Iger used to because he's not smooth. He's a little bit older. He's got a little thinner skin, and there are times when he just gets flustered in a way that old Iger never did, and you know it's okay. But that's what happens when you have a CEO who's been there for how long? Culture? How long has Iger been doing this?
oh, 20 years plus, right? Am I wrong?
Right.
Yeah. I look, when I look at these and the leadership that's being done, and we're going to read his comments in a moment, and then we're going to jump forward. But I'm often struck by parallels as people do get older, they do have shorter tempers, and they do tend to lose their filters, I think is probably the nicest way to say it. Um, and I think just what they're thinking, whatever's at the front of their mind is what they say, and that's an issue. I mean, it's not an issue if you're a comedian. It's not an issue, and he's not. It certainly isn't an issue, if you're well, I'm trying to think of other professions where it's okay to just be unfiltered truth. Probably, well, traditional journalism. But outside of that, I mean, you kind of need those filters, or else you'll say something ridiculous that you may regret later, right, Pro?
Correct.
Yeah,
And there's been many of those, right? Iger has made huge mistakes when it comes to how he's handled the Florida situation, for example.
yeah.
So it's no surprise that he has mishandled as well some of these things to do with entertainers.
Yeah. Well, his words, and I'm just going to read them verbatim because he deserves it. It's very disturbing to me, Iger said when asked about the labor strikes. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing. The recovery from COVID, which is ongoing, it's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption. He continued. I understand any labor organization's desire to work on behalf of its members to get the most compensation and be compensated fairly based on the value that they deliver. We managed as an industry to negotiate a very good deal with the Directors Guild that reflects the value that the directors contribute to this great business. We wanted to do the same thing with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with the actors. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic, and they are adding to the set of challenges that this business is already facing that is frankly very disruptive. So there you are.
I
And
think he came across as scolding and condescending to them, and to some extent, they probably deserved it. To another extent, he's supposed to be the king of charisma. He's supposed to be the mousy messiah,
yeah,
and he let them down in that regard, right? Because they were all so excited that he would return, that he would slay the evil Bob Chapek who dared try to bring Disney back to the middle. And then economics,
Yeah.
math,
Yeah.
logic took place, and it turned out that he too had to try to lower the noise, although he's been unsuccessful.
Oh, I think he's done nothing but increase the noise as Disney quadruples down in a lot of the areas that are driving them to their, well, destruction is how I would characterize it. I'm not sure if you would agree, but the last paragraph, sentence, whatever you want to call it, it's a sentence, but they format it as a paragraph. Is the only thing that matters here, because we're going to talk about the other reasons, not just this verbal outburst by Tatiana Maslany, why She-Hulk isn't returning. Disney and Marvel have not announced a second season of Maslany's She-Hulk, nor has she announced where she might pop up again in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And, well, there's a reason for that, Pro. Do you know what it is?
Tell me, Culture, what possibly could make an actress or the people around her not know when they may ever reprise a role? What could possibly do that?
Well, the fans didn't seem to like the show very much, Pro, with a
How about that?
32% average audience score. This is not performing very well. Now, of course, the tomatometer, which can be influenced by a $50 paid for review.
Culture, you have to pronounce it. You have to pronounce it with a snobbish tone. You have to call it the tomatometer.
Well, okay, you can do that. I don't have that level of effort today, but I'll say this: there were only 10 people who looked at this from the quote unquote professional reviewer side of the equation, and 7 of 10. Somehow they got 77%. I don't know how. Maybe they had 11 people sneak in there, but I'd only seen 10. Maybe one person is just too embarrassed to publish their name. I don't know, but 32% is not exactly satisfying how many people watched it? 1.5 millions. It tied with Hawkeye. And again,
right. Not good. How's that
yeah,
for not good?
Yeah, so you've got 1.5 million people that are viewers. Now, again, what's a viewer, Pro?
Even that is ambiguous at best because it comes down to how long you watch something, and you never know how many eyeballs are on it. And it's all strange with Disney. So unless it comes from Nielsen or unless it comes, I've been nicer to Samba TV lately. Unless it comes from those two, if it's Disney's numbers, I'm always kind of leery about what the heck any of it means.
Because they're estimating the average number of people in a household that may be watching.
Exactly.
Yeah, and again, these are only season premieres, but are you seeing a trend here, Pro?
You mean the trend like how Disney Plus is about to be passed up in ratings by Tubi, which I'm not sure was on their list of things they were going to face off against this year?
Oh, and let me tell you, that video you did yesterday with Hangry Tables, if you guys haven't seen that over on WDW Pro's channel, you should, because they talk at length about what the streaming game looks like and how much it's costing the players. And the cost to benefit ratio is a little askew there, right, Pro?
Well, let's just think about it this way. Why are we not getting She-Hulk Season 2? Because Disney cannot frivolously drip away their funds anymore.
Yeah.
Because they've spent billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they are losing ground in the market share of streaming services, while at the same time, Tubi cost $400 million total and is about to pass Disney Plus in total market share. That is a monumental problem for Disney, and they can't waste money on shows that don't draw in subs. They can't. Like they might put a smile on their face, they might sprinkle their announcements with pixie dust, and they might survive the past year without Nelson Peltz on the board. But that doesn't mean they're in a good place, and that's why they can't do failing shows that are driven by DEI any longer, at least not at the level they were.
Yeah. And I agree with you exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself, but I want to pay attention to the date here. She-Hulk, August 18th. So we're off by a month, no biggie. But She-Hulk, August 18th, 2022. Well, let's look at that number and compare it to the number of subscribers that they had at that time. Let's see. That would be 2022. That's Q4, right? August?
Absolutely.
So we are looking at 164.2 million subscribers.
Oh, boy.
What's off here? You had 164.2 million subscribers, but only 1.5 million tuned into the premiere of She-Hulk.
It's almost as if a very small percentage of the people who are subscribed care. It's almost as if Disney Plus has become the Bluey channel.
Well, yeah, by 1/3 of viewership, if estimates are correct.
Can you imagine Culture? Talking about this She-Hulk thing. Can you imagine what the makers of Bluey are going to be able to charge Disney when that license ends to keep it on Disney Plus? Can you imagine when it's 1/3 of an entire streaming platform's viewership? What that amounts to? I can't even imagine what that's going to be.
And especially in my estimation, that the streaming network, because of the catalog acquired and everything else that came along with it, for Disney, they've literally spent, and I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this, and I don't care, but they've literally spent $100 billion to build out Disney Plus, and I say that for a lot of reasons, because it's not just the content, it's everything they had to get on the way there, like Fox, which we've talked about, over $77 billion. Am I wrong?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So they spent over $77 billion to acquire Fox. Fox basically disappeared at that point, and they did that initially to acquire the other third of Hulu, or to force the position where they have to acquire the other third of Hulu. And then they're going to combine Hulu whenever that deal finally ultimately closes, which, by the way, folks, still hasn't happened. So I don't know how they're doing Project Hulk until that deal closes. But then they had to spend, what was it, 27?
Well, you know how they're doing it, Culture. It's called we will pay whatever we have to now. That's how you do that. That's how you go ahead and integrate Hulu into Disney Plus, is when you come to the realization that we will pay whatever amount is necessary. There is no amount too high. We're going to pay it now. All leverage is gone because we have to integrate Hulu and Disney Plus. And why do they have to do that? Because they have to prove by the end of this year that they made a profit in a single quarter with their streaming services, which was supposed to be done by Disney Plus. But once that became apparent, they would never achieve it, and that would tank the stock in ways we've not seen in modern Disney history. Then they had to duct tape Hulu to it, and that comes at any cost necessary.
Well, and that's a problem because we're up to a running total of $85 billion before we add the $30 billion that they've spent in content, and we're over $100 billion. I know this is big math, but that acquired a bunch of aging dinosaur entities, linear broadcast networks, right? That they seem to think are not going to survive, which I have some pushback on that. I'll talk about in another video sometime. But so they bought a bunch of dead stuff in a catalog to support their new streaming ambitions. And where are we? Well, they still don't know what the balance of Hulu is. I'm estimating another 4 to 8 billion. What do you think?
Oh, I think anywhere between 8. This is the problem, Culture. Now that the leverage is gone, the price has got to go up, right? Because now there's no way out of it. So it's going to be determined by the arbiters here. So anywhere between 8 and 20 billion is what I'm going to say. But here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The way that Disney is going to try to get out of this, apparently, allegedly, is one, they're trying to fix their ESPN situation with the JV thing, which has already got them into congressional trouble from the party that's most inclined to like Disney. But the other thing that Disney's looking to do is now go back to truly cable 2.0 by offering channels inside Disney Plus that are literally just 24 hours, the content very specific that you want, with ads. Literally just cable channels sitting inside Disney Plus. That's their grand plan to try to find money. And so you might think they'll do the Bluey channel or the Simpsons channel or 90s cartoon channel, whatever it is. They are finding any way they can to make money. And good for them, they're a company. But bad for them that they're in this position where they have to come up with those kinds of ideas because they're unprofitable at a massive level otherwise.
Oh, wow. It doesn't look very good for Disney. And they don't have any way to successfully arbitrage any of this, to be fair. So I think they're in a very bad place. And again, just one of the things I like to show, one of the symptoms is, well, that the things that they tried to offer everybody were not successful. So let's get back to this very quickly. Pro, what are your thoughts on where we'll be with She-Hulk, do you think she'll make another appearance anywhere in the MCU?
Oh, I'm sure they can do the CGI She-Hulk character in the background somewhere for a cameo spot.
Do you
I'm sure
think
that's possible.
Do you think Tatiana Maslany will be involved?
You know, Bob Iger is very quick to forgive the women who do him wrong. The men, not so much. But it would not surprise me if Tatiana returns to some level, but never what would have been. Never like maybe I'll eat crow when she's on the next Avengers team. But I don't see her coming back uh, to a grand level. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't either. All right, well, let's call it there. Now, Pro, you've been doing a lot of great things over on your channel recently, and I admire everything that you're doing. I'm proud to be part of it from time to time. Is there anything that you want to promote or tell people about that's coming up that they should be aware of?
Well, first of all, you're too humble, Culture, because you are a huge part of what we do, and we're looking to grow that even more. No announcements yet. But yeah, we're excited to keep pumping out the content 3 times a day, talking about Disney, talking about entertainment, all the news that should be fun. And folks, also, if you are looking for even more in terms of explaining pop culture and where it's going, make sure to check out That Park Place, the YouTube channel as well. And we'll just keep doing what we do, which is to explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve.
Well, thank you very much, Pro. And you're a little humble yourself there because you've launched another in your network of channels. That Park Place. Oh, wait. That Park Place podcast online.
T3PO. Yes, T3PO. And yeah, the handle is at That Pod Place. Maybe one day that'll be the name. I'm not sure. It's a little bit long, but you know what? So are the videos. So it's apropos.
There you go.
Long format.
That's right. On that note, folks, thanks for joining us today. Be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.